The Galactic Coalition had one rule that nobody ever broke. For 12,000 years, every species in the galaxy followed this rule without question. The rule was simple. Never contact the Deathworlders of Sol 3. Never speak to them. Never visit their planet. Never let them know that other life existed in the universe. The beings of the Coalition had good reasons for this rule. They had watched the Deathworlders from far away for centuries. They had seen what kind of world Sol 3 was. The planet was a nightmare. Massive storms that could destroy entire cities. Mountains that spat fire and ash into the sky. The ground itself would shake and split open without warning. The oceans were filled with creatures that had hundreds of teeth. Even the smallest life forms on that world were deadly. Bacteria, viruses, parasites. The planet seemed designed to kill everything that lived on it, and yet, life not only survived there, it thrived, it fought. It evolved into something the Coalition had never seen before. The humans, the Coalition species, had evolved on gentle worlds. Worlds with stable climates and peaceful ecosystems. They had never needed to develop aggression or violence. They had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. But the humans had never forgotten. Their entire history was written in blood and fire. Wars that lasted for generations. Weapons that could crack the planet in half. They killed each other by the millions and somehow kept growing stronger. So the Coalition watched from the darkness of space and stayed silent. Better to leave the monsters alone on their death world. Better to pretend they did not exist. Ambassador Kethvari, of the Luminara species, had believed this her entire life. Her people were beings of light. Their skin glowed with soft colors that showed their emotions. They were peaceful, gentle. They had not known violence for 10,000 years now. She ran through the halls of the Coalition Council building, her light flickering with pure terror. Behind her, she carried a data crystal that contained the end of everything. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. They floated and crawled and walked on different numbers of legs. Their bodies were made of crystal and flesh and energy. They had gathered to discuss trade agreements and minor border disputes. Normal things. Safe things. Kethvari burst through the doors and collapsed on the floor. Her light was so dim that she was almost invisible. "They've returned," she gasped. "The Harvesters. They have returned." The chamber went silent. Every being in the room knew that name. The Harvesters were ancient machines. They had appeared 12,000 years ago and consumed entire civilizations before disappearing into the dark spaces between galaxies. The Coalition had formed specifically to prepare for their return. They had built observation posts and warning systems. They had told themselves they were ready. They were not ready. Kethvari activated the data crystal. Holographic images filled the chamber. Images of harvester ships descending on the outer colonies. Images of cities being torn apart for raw materials. Images of billions of people running and screaming and dying. 17 billion, Kethvari said. Her voice was empty. Broken. 17 billion people in 6 days. They are moving toward the core worlds. They will reach Sanctuary Prime in 2 weeks. After that, she did not need to finish. Grand Arbiter Yulthan, the leader of the Coalition Council, rose from his seat. He was an ancient being, his body wrapped in ceremonial robes that hid his withered form. He had led the Coalition for 300 years. He had never faced a crisis like this. "Our fleets," he said. "We must mobilize our fleets. Our fleets are for parades and ceremonies," another council member replied. "They are not built for war. We have not fought a war in 8,000 years. We do not even remember how." The chamber erupted into chaos. Species shouted at each other in languages that the translation systems could barely keep up with. Some called for evacuation. Some called for negotiation. Some simply sat in stunned silence, unable to accept that their perfect civilization was about to end. Kethvari stood in the middle of it all, her light slowly growing stronger. She had done something during her escape from the outer colonies. Something forbidden? Something that could save them all? Or doom them even faster? "I sent a message," she said quietly. The shouting stopped. Everyone turned to look at her. "What message?" Grand Arbiter Yulthan asked. To whom? To Sol 3. Her light flickered with fear, but did not dim. To Earth, to the humans. I sent a distress signal. I asked them for help. The silence that followed was unlike anything the Council had ever experienced. It was the silence of a universe that had just changed forever. You have killed us, Yulton whispered. The Deathworlders will see our weakness and come to finish what the Harvesters started. You have traded one extinction for another. No, Kethvari stood taller. I have studied the humans. Not from the old records that call them monsters. I have watched their recent history. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they are dangerous. But I have seen something else in them. Something the Coalition never noticed because we were too afraid to look closely. What could you possibly have seen? I have seen them run toward disasters instead of away from them. I have seen them rebuild cities that were destroyed by their own wars. I have seen them risk their lives for strangers they had never met. Her light began to glow brighter than it had in days. I have seen them protect the weak, not because it benefited them, not because they were ordered to, but because it was the right thing to do. I did not call predators Grand Arbiter. I called guardians. 47 light-years away, in a building deep beneath the mountains of Earth, Admiral Chen Wei stared at a screen filled with alien text. Her translation team had worked through the night to decode the message. The signal had come from somewhere beyond their solar system. The first proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and it was a cry for help. The message was simple. We are dying. Something is killing us. We cannot stop it. Please help. Around her, the Joint Chiefs of the United Earth Defense Command argued about what to do. Some said it was a trap. Some said they should wait for more information. Some said they had no obligation to help species that had ignored humanity for so long. Admiral Chen raised her hand. The room fell silent. She was not the highest-ranking officer in the room, but she was the most respected. She had spent 40 years defending Earth from threats both real and imagined. She had earned the right to speak first. They called us, she said quietly. After everything they must have seen. After all the reasons they had to fear us. When death came for them, they called us. She looked around the room at the faces of men and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting their world. How can we call ourselves human if we ignore that? We do not even know what we are facing, someone protested. We know enough. We know that someone is afraid. We know that someone needs help. We know that we might be the only ones who can provide it. She turned to the communications officer. Signal every fleet, every ship, every soldier. Full combat deployment. We launch in 6 hours. 6 hours is not enough time to prepare properly. Then we will prepare on the way. Someone asked for our help. Every minute we delay is a minute they spend dying. Her voice hardened into steel. We are the Deathworlders. Let us show the galaxy what that really means. Cross Earth's engines that had waited a century for this moment roared to life. Ships lifted from hidden bases and orbital platforms. Soldiers said goodbye to their families and boarded transport vessels. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled began to form in the darkness between Earth and Mars. The Deathworlders were coming. And they were coming to help. Observer Trillax had spent his entire career watching empty space. His job was simple. He sat at a monitoring station on the edge of Coalition territory and watched for anything unusual. In 30 years, he had never seen anything more exciting than a stray comet. Today, his instruments detected something that made his 4 hearts stop beating at the same time. That is not possible, he whispered to his colleague. Check the readings again. His colleague checked. Then checked again. Then made a sound that his species only made when facing certain death. The human fleet was coming, and it was bigger than anything either of them had ever imagined. The Coalition had always believed that humanity kept only a small defensive force. A few ships to protect their planet from asteroids and other natural threats. The species was young, primitive. Surely they could not have built anything significant. The fleet that appeared on Trillax's sensors contained over 300 warships. They did not look like Coalition vessels. Coalition ships were beautiful. They were made of crystal and light, designed to show the artistic achievements of their creators. They glided through space like dreams given form. Human ships looked like nightmares given metal. They were angular and harsh. Sharp edges and thick armor covered every surface. They did not glide through space. They tore through it, leaving trails of radiation from engines that burned hotter than stars. Each ship bristled with weapons, cannons, missiles, things that Trelax could not even identify. These were not vessels built for exploration or trade. They were built for one purpose only: war. How did they build so many? His colleague asked. They have only been a spacefaring species for 200 years. They spent those 200 years preparing for a fight that never came. Trelax could not stop staring at the display. They have been waiting, building, getting ready. And now someone has finally given them a reason to use what they built. At the center of the fleet, surrounded by cruisers and destroyers like a queen surrounded by her guards, flew the flagship, the UES Endurance. It was 3 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Its hull was scarred from decades of training exercises and patrol missions. It was not pretty. It was not elegant. It was terrifying. Admiral Chenwei stood on the bridge of the Endurance and studied the holographic display in front of her. It showed Coalition space in perfect detail. The locations of colonies, the movements of civilian ships, and most importantly, the path of destruction left by the harvesters. The machines had been efficient. They moved from system to system in a straight line, consuming everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not slow down. They simply took what they wanted and moved on to the next target. Analysis complete, said Dr. Amara Okonkwo, the fleet's first contact specialist. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. The harvesters are von Neumann. Machines. Self-replicating. Self-repairing. They break down planets for raw materials and use those materials to build more of themselves. So every planet they consume makes them stronger. Admiral Chen said, exactly. By the time they reach the core worlds, their fleet will be 10 times larger than it is now. Weaknesses. Unknown. According to Coalition records, no species has ever successfully fought them. Captain Torres appeared on a secondary display. He commanded the cruiser Defiant and was one of the most aggressive officers in the fleet. That is because no one has ever tried. Look at the Coalition fleet movements. They have been running for 12,000 years. They do not know how to fight. They have forgotten. They were smart enough to call us, Admiral Chen replied. That took courage or desperation. Sometimes those are the same thing. The Admiral turned back to the main display. The harvesters follow a predictable pattern. They move in a straight line. They do not scout ahead. They do not adapt their tactics. They have never needed to, because nothing has ever challenged them. That is their weakness, Dr. Okonkwo realized. They have never evolved. They are still using the same strategies they used 12,000 years ago. We have spent 200 years evolving nothing but combat tactics. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We trained for wars against enemies we could not imagine. Enemies that might attack from any direction using any method. We prepared for the worst, because our history taught us that the worst always comes eventually. She pulled up Earth's geological history on the display. Extinction events marked in red. Ice ages. Asteroid impacts. Supervolcanic eruptions. Plagues that killed billions. Our planet tried to kill us every day for 4 billion years, she said, and we survived. We did not just survive. We dominated. We conquered every environment, every climate, every threat. We did not do this because we were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We did it because we refused to give up. We did it because when something tries to kill a human, the human finds a way to kill it back. Admiral, the sensor officer interrupted. Harvester scout ships detected. 12 vessels. They will intercept us in 2 hours. The bridge went quiet. This would be humanity's first contact with an alien intelligence. Not a peaceful meeting between explorers. Not a careful exchange of greetings and gifts. A battle. All hands to combat stations, Admiral Chen ordered. Signal the fleet. Standard engagement formation? We do not stop. We do not slow down. We go straight through them. Straight through. Captain Torres sounded surprised. We do not even know their capabilities. Then we will learn them the hard way. The Coalition is counting the hours until the harvesters reach them. Every minute we spend being careful is a minute more people die. We do not have time to be careful. We only have time to win. The human fleet did not change course. It did not reduce speed. It accelerated directly toward the harvester scouts. On the Coalition monitoring station, Trillax watched with growing disbelief. They are insane. They are completely insane. They are charging directly at the enemy. Maybe they know something we do not. Or maybe they are exactly what we always feared. Violent, reckless, dangerous. 2 hours later, the first battle between humanity and the harvesters began. The harvester scouts opened fire with weapons, designed to strip mine asteroids, beams of energy that could cut through solid rock, missiles that carried payloads meant to shatter moons. The human ships did not try to dodge. They flew straight into the attack, their armor absorbing hits that would have destroyed Coalition vessels instantly. And then they fired back. Human weapons were different. They were not designed to mine or build or harvest. They were designed to destroy. Missiles that exploded in clouds of shrapnel, railguns that fired projectiles at incredible speeds, energy weapons that burned through harvester armor like it was made of paper. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 12 harvester scouts had been reduced to drifting wreckage. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. On the Endurance, Admiral Chen studied the data from the engagement. Analysis. Their weapons are powerful but slow, her tactical officer reported. Their armor is strong, but not designed for combat. They have never needed to defend themselves. They are not soldiers. They are workers with tools, and we are soldiers with weapons. Admiral Chen nodded. Signal the fleet. Increase speed to maximum. I want to reach Sanctuary Prime before the main harvester force. We need to set up defensive positions and evacuate civilians. Admiral, our ships need rest. Our crews need rest. They can rest when everyone is safe. Not before. She looked out the viewport at the distant stars. Somewhere ahead, millions of people were waiting to die. They had called for help, and help was coming. Signal the Coalition. Tell them we have engaged the enemy and we are on our way. Tell them to hold on. What if they cannot hold on? Admiral Chen's voice was hard as steel. Then we will avenge them. But we will give them every chance to survive first. That is what humans do. We fight for the living until there is no one left to save, and then we fight some more. The fleet burned through space like a spear thrown at the heart of darkness. Behind them, the wreckage of the harvester scouts tumbled through the void. The first victory in a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had come to fight. Sanctuary Prime was the largest refugee station in Coalition space. It floated in orbit around a gas giant, far from any habitable world. For centuries, it had served as a place for travelers to rest and ships to refuel. Now it had become the last hope for 18 million survivors from 100. Different species, they had come from the outer colonies. They had fled in whatever ships they could find. Cargo vessels, passenger shuttles, personal transports meant for short trips between moons. Many had not made it. Many more had arrived with injuries and trauma that no doctor knew how to treat, and now they waited. They waited for the harvesters to come and finish what they had started. They waited for death. When the first human ships appeared on their sensors, many of them fled in terror. The stories about Deathworlders were known throughout the Coalition. Every child learned them. Humans were monsters. They killed for pleasure. They ate the flesh of other creatures. They could survive wounds that would kill any civilized being 3 times over. Their planet was so dangerous that even visiting it meant certain death. Now those monsters were here, and they were coming closer. The human medical ships reached Sanctuary Prime 3 days before the main fleet. They were smaller vessels, painted white with red symbols that meant nothing to Coalition species. They carried doctors and nurses and supplies. They carried help. But the refugees did not see help. They saw predators. Dr. Sarah Martinez stepped off her shuttle into a docking bay filled with terrified aliens. Beings of every shape and size pressed themselves against the walls, trying to get as far away from her as possible. Some were crying. Some were screaming. Some had simply frozen in place, too scared to move. Sarah had prepared for this. She had studied Coalition psychology during the journey. She knew that these people had spent their entire lives being told that humans were dangerous. She knew that changing their minds would take time. She also knew that they did not have time. "I need a translator," she said calmly to her team. "And I need everyone to move slowly. No sudden movements. No loud noises. We are guests here." Small device on her collar converted her words into the Coalition common language. She stepped forward carefully, keeping her hands visible and her posture relaxed. "My name is Dr. Sarah Martinez," she announced. "I am a physician from Earth. My team and I are here to help. We have medical supplies, food, clean water. If anyone is injured or sick, please let us know. We will treat everyone, regardless of species." No one moved. The fear in the room was so thick that Sarah could almost taste it. Then she noticed a child. The little one was Luminara, her skin normally glowing with soft light. But right now, she was dark, almost invisible. She stood alone in the middle of the docking bay, separated from the adults who had pressed themselves against the walls. She was shaking so hard that Sarah could see it from across the room. Sarah walked toward her. "Doctor, be careful," one of her team members warned. "If you scare them, she's already scared. Being scared alone is worse." Sarah kept walking until she was a few meters from the child. Then she did something that made every Coalition observer gasp in shock. She knelt down. In Coalition cultures, making yourself smaller was a sign of submission. It meant you were no threat. It meant you were giving up your advantage. No predator would ever do it voluntarily. But Sarah knelt. She made herself small. She looked up at the child instead of down. "Hello there," she said softly. "You look like you were having a really hard day." The child's lights flickered weakly. You are a Deathworlder. I am a human. That is what we call ourselves." "They said you eat everything. They said you hunt for fun." "We do eat a lot of things," Sarah admitted. "But we never eat brave little girls who are handling a scary situation really well." "What is your name?" "Cathara." "That is a beautiful name. Cathara, do you know where your family is?" The child shook her head. Her lights dimmed even further. "I lost them. When the ships came, everyone was running and I could not find them. I am very sorry. That must have been terrifying." Sarah reached into her bag slowly, making sure Cathara could see what she was doing. "I am going to help you find them. But first, have you eaten today?" Another shake of the head. Sarah pulled out a ration bar. It was designed for human nutrition, but the team had modified it to be safe for most Coalition species. "This is food from my world. It does not taste very good, but it will make you feel better. Would you like to try it?" Cathara looked at the bar. She looked at Sarah. For a long moment she did not move. Then slowly, she reached out and took it. She bit into it carefully. Her face twisted in confusion at the unfamiliar taste. But she kept eating. And as she ate, her lights began to glow, just a little bit brighter. Ambassador. Kethvari watched from an observation deck above the docking bay. Beside her stood Grand Arbiter Yulfon. Neither of them spoke for a long time. "This is not what I expected," Yulfon finally said. "The histories describe them as violent, aggressive, dangerous. The histories were written by people who only saw humans from far away." Kethvari's lights pulsed with something like hope. They saw the wars, the weapons, the death. They never stayed long enough to see what came after. Below them, more human medical staff were spreading through the refugee camps. They moved carefully, respectfully. They asked permission before touching anyone. They smiled at children and spoke softly to the frightened adults. One massive human soldier had somehow ended up with 3 alien children climbing on him like he was a playground. He was pretending to look for them while they hid behind his legs, giggling with sounds that their species used to express joy. "They are playing," Yulthan said in wonder. "In the middle of a war zone? With strangers' children? That is why I called them." Kethvari turned to face the Grand Arbiter. "Every species in the Coalition evolved away from violence. We became peaceful because we removed all threats from our worlds. We forgot what it meant to be dangerous because we made sure we never needed to be dangerous again. And humans never had that choice. Their world kept trying to kill them. Every generation faced new threats, new disasters, new ways to die. They could not remove the danger from their world, so they learned to live with it. They learned to fight it. And somewhere along the way, they learned something else." "What?" "They learned that the strong must protect the weak." Kethvari's lights glowed bright with understanding. "On a death world, that is the only way to survive. The hunters protect the gatherers. The warriors protect the children. Everyone who can fight does fight, not for themselves but for those who cannot. Violence became their tool for preservation, not destruction." A transmission crackled through the station's speakers. Admiral Chen's voice filled the air. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Defense Fleet. I want to speak directly to the refugees on the station." The docking bay went silent. Even the children stopped playing. "I know many of you are afraid of us. I know what you have been told about our world and our people. I will not tell you those stories are wrong. Earth is dangerous. We are what it made us. But I will tell you this," her voice softened. It was still strong, but there was something else in it now. Something warm. "In humanity's darkest hours, when everything seemed lost, we survived because we refused to leave anyone behind. You called for help. We came. The harvesters will not reach this station. They will not reach any of you. You have my word. You have the word of every human in this fleet." Below, Dr. Martinez was still kneeling beside Kithara. The child had finished her ration bar and was now holding the doctor's hand. Her lights were glowing steadily, warm and safe. "Why did you come?" Kithara asked. "You do not know us. You asked for help," Sarah replied simply. That is all we needed to know. Round the station, refugees who had spent days expecting death began to cry. Not from fear, not from grief. From relief, from hope, from the sudden, overwhelming realization that someone had come to save them. A word began to spread through the refugee networks. It passed from ship to ship, from species to species, growing stronger each time it was repeated. The Deathworlders do not abandon the weak. They protect them. The Harvester Armada arrived like a wound being torn in the fabric of space. One moment, the sensors showed empty void. The next moment, they showed death. 1,700 combat vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel. Behind them came 4,000 harvesting drones, smaller machines designed for only one purpose: to take apart planets and process the resources, to turn worlds into raw materials. The machines had already calculated the outcome of the engagement. Sanctuary Prime contained 18 million organic units. The station itself contained valuable metals and rare elements. The processing would take approximately 37 hours. After that, the Armada would continue to the next target. The calculations did not include the human. Fleet Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Endurance and watched the enemy formation take shape on her display. The harvesters moved with mechanical precision, every ship in exactly the right position, every drone following its programmed course. There was no creativity, no adaptation, just perfect, efficient execution of strategies that had worked for 12,000 years. Analysis. She asked. "They outnumber us nearly 3-1, her tactical officer reported. "Their combined firepower is approximately 7 times greater than ours. Their armor is designed to withstand asteroid impacts and planetary debris. Weaknesses? Their weapons are slow. Their ships are not maneuverable. Their formations are rigid, The officer paused. And they have never faced an enemy that fought back. Captain Torres's voice came through the fleet communication channel. Admiral, their weapons are built for mining and harvesting. They can crack planets, but they are not designed for ship-to-ship combat. We can use that. Explain. Their targeting systems are made for stationary or slow-moving objects. If we keep moving, keep attacking from different angles, they will not be able to track us effectively. They are machines following old programs. We are humans. We adapt. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. It was a good plan. Dangerous, but good. All ships, this is the Admiral, form attack groups of 5. Each group will operate independently. Hit the enemy from every direction. Do not give them time to adjust. Do not let them predict your movements. Be unpredictable. Be aggressive. Be human. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle over her fleet. The enemy before us has never faced real resistance. They have spent 12,000 years consuming species that ran away. They have never had to fight for their victories. They have never had to struggle or adapt or survive. They are machines following ancient programs. Her voice hardened. You're something else entirely. Our ancestors hunted animals 10 times their size with sharpened sticks. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They walked on the moon. They did impossible things not because they were certain of success, but because they refused to accept failure. That is who we are. That is what we do. We face the impossible, and we find a way to win. She straightened in her command chair. Engage at will. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up the void like the birth of a new star. On Sanctuary Prime, the refugees watched the battle unfold on the station's external sensors. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about warfare coalition tactics emphasized. Defense, protection, minimizing losses. Ships formed careful formations and retreated when the enemy advanced. Survival was always the priority. Human tactics were completely different. The human ships attacked in coordinated packs. Like wolves hunting prey, they darted through enemy formations, exploiting gaps that appeared for only seconds. They did not form defensive lines. They did not try to protect themselves. They simply attacked, constantly, from every direction at once. When one ship took damage, it did not withdraw. It kept fighting. The cruiser Unconquered took 17 direct hits that should have destroyed it 3 times over. Its armor was shattered. Its engines were failing. Its crew was working in conditions that would have killed most coalition species instantly. Commander, Rodriguez refused to retreat. Damage control. Reroute all power to forward batteries, she ordered. Navigation? Bring us alongside that command ship. If we are going down, we are taking them with us. It did not go down. For 3 more hours, the Unconquered kept fighting. Its crew refused to give up. They sealed breaches with emergency foam. They rerouted systems through backup pathways. They kept their weapons firing until the last harvester in their sector was debris. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships taking damage that should have been fatal. Human crews refusing to accept defeat. Human determination overwhelming mechanical precision. Then the harvesters adapted. A flanking force of 40 ships broke through the human lines. They accelerated toward Sanctuary Prime, ignoring the battle behind them. Their programming had identified a priority target, 18 million organic units. They would complete their harvest while the human fleet was distracted. The destroyer wing. Hell's own luck saw them coming. There were only 5 destroyers in the wing. Small ships. Fast, but fragile. They had already been fighting for hours. Their ammunition was nearly depleted. Their crews were exhausted. Commander Park, the wing leader, did not hesitate. All ships, intercept course. Maximum speed. Commander, we cannot stop 40 harvesters. We do not have the firepower. Then we will find another way. Park's voice was calm, almost peaceful. Those refugees called for help. They trusted us to protect them. We are not going to let them down. Hell's Own Luck and her sister ships threw themselves at the harvester flanking force. They fired everything they had. missiles, railgun rounds. Even their point defense systems were turned against the enemy, but it was not enough. The harvesters kept coming. When the weapons ran dry, the human destroyers did something that the harvester programming could not comprehend. They used their ships as weapons, at full speed. A destroyer could impact an enemy vessel with the force of a small nuclear explosion. It was suicide. It was also effective. 2 human destroyers were lost. Their crews had time to transmit one final message before impact. For Earth. For humanity. For everyone we protect. 38 harvester ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors of Hell's Own. Luck were already calling for new ships. They wanted to get back to the fight. On the Endurance, Admiral Chen watched the battle data scroll across her display. The human fleet was winning, but the cost was terrible. Ships lost. Crews dead. Friends and colleagues who would never go home, but the refugees were still alive. Sanctuary Prime was still intact. The mission was still possible. A new report came in. The Harvester command ship was withdrawing from the main battle. It was moving to the rear of the enemy formation. Preparing to escape. Preparing to rebuild. Standard military doctrine said to let it go. Consolidate the victory. Prepare for the next engagement. A retreating enemy was better than a fighting enemy. Admiral Chen made a different choice. All ships, pursuit formation. We are not letting them escape. Admiral, our ships need repairs. Our crews need rest. They can rest when everyone is safe. She stood up from her command chair. The harvesters have retreated from every battle they have ever fought because no one ever chased them. They rebuild. They grow stronger. They come back. Not this time. This time, we end it. Our losses will be honored by making sure no one else has to die. Chen's voice was steel wrapped in ice. We did not come here to fight the harvesters. We came here to destroy them. Signal the fleet. Full pursuit. We finish this now. The human fleet, battered and bleeding and burning with fury, turned toward the retreating enemy. They had already done the impossible. Now they were going to do something even harder. They were going to win completely on Sanctuary Prime. Ambassador Kethvari watched the human ships accelerate into the heart of the Harvester Armada. She did not understand the tactics. She did not understand the strategy. But she understood something more important. They are not just fighting for us, she said quietly. They are fighting so no one else will ever have to face this threat again. They are willing to die not just to save us, but to save everyone who might come after. Beside her, Lieutenant Park's voice came through the communication system. The young woman had volunteered for this mission knowing she might not survive. Her destroyer wing had just given everything they had. "Ah, there is a human saying," Park said. Her voice was tired, but proud. No one left behind. It does not just mean we save everyone we can. It means we make sure the threat cannot come back. We do not just defend, we win, so that the people we protect never have to be afraid again. The battle for Sanctuary Prime raged on. But for the first time in 12,000 years, the harvesters were not winning, they were running, and the humans were not letting them go. The Harvester command ship had operated for 12,000 years without failure. Its central intelligence had consumed 347 civilizations. It had processed approximately 800 billion organic life forms. Its probability matrices were perfect. Its strategies were flawless. It had never encountered a significant variable that it could not calculate until now the human fleet should have stopped. According to every model the command intelligence possessed, damaged vessels withdrew from combat. Species that suffered significant losses retreated to protect their remaining forces. This was logical. This was efficient. This was how organic life behaved. The humans did not stop. They did not retreat. They kept coming. Commander Jackson piloted a single-seat fighter through the chaos of the battlefield. His squadron had been destroyed hours ago. His ship was damaged. His weapons were nearly empty. By every reasonable measure, he should have pulled back to the carrier group instead. He was flying directly toward the Harvester command ship. His targeting computer had identified a weakness. a thermal exhaust port that led directly to the main reactor. A nearly impossible shot. A suicide mission. Jackson did not hesitate. Control, this is Reaper 7. I have a firing solution on the command ship. One shot. Nuclear payload. Reaper 7, that is a one-way trip. You will not survive the blast radius. I know. Jackson's voice was calm, almost peaceful. But neither will they. He accelerated toward the target. Harvester point defense systems tried to track him, but he was too small, moving too fast. He wove through the enemy fire like he was dancing with death itself. His final transmission was broadcast across the entire fleet. You calculate everything, do you not? Every variable. Every outcome? Every probability. He laughed softly. Calculate this. Humans do not know how to give up. We never learned. We do not have the programming for it. Tell your probability matrices that. Tell them that humanity sends its regards. The nuclear warhead detonated inside the Harvester. Command ship's reactor core. The explosion was visible from Sanctuary Prime. Across the battlefield, something changed. The Harvester vessels had always moved with perfect coordination. Every ship connected to the Central Command intelligence. Now that intelligence was gone. The machines did not stop functioning, but they hesitated. They stuttered. Their movements became uncertain. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Harvesters experienced something their programming had no category for. They understood that they could lose. Admiral Chen saw the opening instantly. All ships, this is the Admiral. The enemy command structure has been eliminated. They are confused. They are vulnerable. All batteries, maximum fire. Do not let them recover. Do not let them adapt. End this now. The human fleet, battered and bleeding and burning with grief for their fallen, struck with everything they had left. Ships that should have been in repair docks fired their weapons. Crews that should have been resting pushed themselves beyond every limit. They fought not with the cold efficiency of machines, but with the hot fury of beings who had lost friends and family, and refused to let those losses be meaningless, one by one. The Harvester ships fell. Their ancient programs could not adapt fast enough. Their 12,000-year-old strategies could not respond to an enemy that simply refused to behave the way enemies were supposed to behave. By the time the last Harvester signal faded from the sensors, the human fleet had lost a third of its ships. 7,000 humans had given their lives defending strangers, who had spent centuries treating their species like a plague. The void was quiet. The battle was over. On the bridge of the Endurance, Admiral Chen stood in silence for a long moment. Around her, her surviving crew waited. They were exhausted, grieving, proud. She opened a channel to Sanctuary Prime, Admiral Chen, to Coalition refugees and leadership. Her voice was hoarse from hours of shouting orders, but it was steady. The Harvester threat has been neutralized. You are safe. All of you. The transmission carried to every speaker on the station, to every refugee huddled in temporary shelters, to the Grand Arbiter and his council, to Ambassador Kethveri, who had started all of this with a desperate message sent into the darkness. I am told that many of your historians have studied humanity, Chen continued, that you have debated for centuries about what makes us dangerous, our strength, our aggression, our refusal to die when we should. I want to offer a different answer. She paused, gathering her thoughts, choosing her words carefully. What makes humans dangerous is not that we come from a world that tried to kill us. It is that we come from a world that taught us what matters. When everything wants you dead, you learn very quickly what you are willing to die for. You learn that the things worth protecting are worth any cost. Her gaze found the viewport. Outside, the stars burned cold and eternal. Between them floated the debris of the battle and the promise of tomorrow. You called us Deathworlders, and you were right. Our world is cruel and harsh and unforgiving. But that is exactly why we could not ignore your signal. Because we know what it is like to be afraid. We know what it is like to face something stronger than you and have nowhere to run. And we know, every human knows in their bones, that when someone weaker asks for help, you answer. That is not despite being from a death world. That is because of it. She straightened, and despite her exhaustion, her voice rang with conviction. Suffering taught us compassion. Survival taught us sacrifice. Death taught us what life is worth. The Coalition feared us because we are capable of violence. But violence was never the point. We are capable of anything for the people we choose to protect. Today, we chose you. And if you will have us, we would like to keep choosing you. Not as Deathworlders. Not as monsters to be feared. But as friends, allies, family. In the refugee camps on Sanctuary Prime, 18 million beings from 100 species stood in stunned silence. For days, they had waited to die. First from the Harvesters. Then from the Deathworlders, they had called for help. They had expected either death to come eventually. Instead, they had received life. Ambassador Kethfori stepped forward. Her bioluminescence, which had flickered with fear for so long, now blazed at its brightest setting. Among the Luminara, this was the gesture of absolute trust, complete acceptance. She bowed before the human delegation on the station, one by one. Representatives from every other species joined her, beings with tentacles and wings and crystalline bodies, beings who had never agreed on anything for thousands of years. All of them lowered themselves in acknowledgement of what the humans had done. Grand Arbiter Yulthan, his ancient voice thick with emotion. We spoke for the Coalition. For 12,000 years we called you Deathworlders. We thought it meant you were monsters. We were wrong. Paused, struggling to find words that had not been spoken in millennia. It means you are survivors. It means you are protectors. It means you understand something we forgot long ago. That safety is not something you receive. It is something you create. For yourself and for others. He straightened as much as his old body would allow. Welcome to the galactic community, humanity. We are honored that you answered our call. Months later, the first permanent human embassy opened on the Coalition homeworld. It was a simple building by human standards, strong, practical, built to last. Above its entrance flew two flags, the flag of United Earth and the flag of the Galactic Coalition, side by side. In the central plaza outside the embassy, a statue was erected. It depicted a human soldier kneeling beside an alien child. The soldier had one hand extended in help. The other hand rested on a weapon, ready to defend. The plaque at the base of the statue contained only a few words. They came from a death world. They taught us what it means to live. People from 100 different species came to see the statue. They came to understand. They came to remember. The Luminara brought their children to see it, their lights glowing bright with safety. The crystalline beings stood before it in silence, their facets reflecting the memorial like stained glass. Even species who had once considered humans to be the greatest threat in the galaxy came to pay their respects. And sometimes, late at night, human soldiers would visit. They would stand before the statue and remember their friends who had not come home. They would read the names on the memorial wall nearby. 7,000 names. 7,000 people who had given everything for strangers. They would remember, and they would be proud. The galaxy had changed forever. The species who had spent 12,000 years running from every threat had learned that there was another way. And the species who had spent 4 billion years learning to survive had finally found something worth protecting beyond their own world. The Deathworlders had come. Not as conquerors, not as monsters, as family, and the galaxy would never be the same.